Welcome back to the Adventure Athletes podcast. My name is Nicholson, and on today's episode, we talk about how selfish a lot of runners are and my journey into ultra running and where I am today. Hope you enjoy the episode.
So my question to you is, what was your call to adventure?
I suppose it was gradual, really. Like, I didn't start running until 2019. I'm 37 now, coming up, so I was in my 30s before I started running, and so I only started really just because I wanted to get a bit of fitness, because I had a pretty sedate job where I was just sat on my arse all day in a machine. I used to play football when I was younger, but I'd stopped that. We'd had our first daughter and she was just about to turn one in the February of 2019. And I just thought I just need to do something just to move my arse really and just get going. But I'd always hated running. I'd always thought it was just the most boring thing in the world. But I think it was probably because I was just so unfit and it was just hard, really hard. And I remember going out when I first went out in 2019. It was like an unofficial New Year's resolution kind of thing. So I started in the January of 2019. I thought, well, I'm just going to give it a go. Just bought some cheap trainers and I had sad shorts and t-shirt, and I thought, right, let's go out. And those first few runs, God, I remember them being so hard, just at 1 or 2 miles, and my chest, like, it was a really cold winter, and I just remember my chest burning, and I just felt awful, and I just thought, why would anyone want to run? Like, it's crap. It's really bad. But as time went on, I kept up, and as time went on, then you just get fitter, and you kind of realise then, the benefits of it, and it's not so much of a chore then, it becomes a bit more enjoyable. And it was just the simplicity of running that I fell in love with, I think, because you can just get your trainers on and go out the door. And so, like, that first 6 months to a year, probably in 2019, as I got fitter, I entered my first race in the July, which was just a 10k trail race, and of course you get the first medal and you just think, oh yeah, that's, it's the best thing in the world, isn't it? Just that feeling of just completing that and, being with other people, like-minded people, and that racing, that competitive spirit, which I've always had, whether it's just doing something for myself or with other people, playing bloody board games with the kids or something like that. So that was quite nice, and it just unlocked a little bit of something different in me, I think. But then through that 2019, it was just like 10k races. I'm not sure if I think I did a couple of half marathons as well, but it was all road stuff really. Did Cardiff 10k. I think I did Cardiff half that year as well, maybe, and Ealing half marathon down London. And but it wasn't really probably until 2020 that I really got the running bug, because lockdown happened. I changed my job in January 2020, just before lockdown happened, and so I had a bit more time then, a bit more freedom to do things and get out running. And because with my previous job, like, I was probably out 11-12 hours a day. You come home, put the daughter to bed, have your tea, and then the day's gone. Like, you're out at 6 and back at 6. It was hard to fit it in. But then when I got this new job, I had a bit more flexibility. So then come lockdown, obviously everything was you were just at home, and I pretty much ran through that summer. I was running pretty much every day, and that's when I really got the bug then. Like, it was a nice summer. I remember from the Easter time on, nice weather. It was just a good excuse to get out, really, get out of the house. And of course it was quiet. It was lovely. It was almost perfect for running. And I was doing a lot of cycling as well then. But it was that year that I really got the bug, and of course then, I did a virtual challenge in that summer of 2020 to run from Land's End to John O'Groats, which is like 870 miles, something like that. And I did that in about 2.5-3 months, pretty much running every day, and you log your miles and get your medal at the end of it. And so I was probably as fit as I've ever been then, was in 2020. And then gradually the miles just built up, and I'd entered, I'm not sure if it may have been that summer, entered to do the Canham. That would be my first ultra in 2021. But then that was cancelled. Of course, then going on into the summer of 2021, I think it was September, it was rescheduled for. It got cancelled again, obviously, because I think we went into another lockdown. But me and another guy from my running club in Bilth both signed up to do it. But we were like, well, we've done the training, we may as well do our own. So we did a 40-mile run from Bilth to Hay-on-Wye and back, which was 40 mile on the dot. And I remember being sat, I think it must have been that same day, I sat in the pub, Pier Garden, after I'd finished it, and I signed up for the Edam. And so it was just that gradual increase, you think, oh, I can do that, so I'll go a bit more, and then I can do that, so I'll do a bit more, and then it just went from there, really. But my first ultra was that 40 mile, doing that Canham, but I was just, like I said, that was the fittest I've probably ever been, was doing those 2021 when we had the lockdowns, because I was just running all the time. And it just went from there then. And of course, the more you learn about, when I first started running, I didn't know anything about it, so I was running 100 mile an hour everywhere you go, and that's probably why it was so hard to start with, because you were thinking, you've got to run a certain pace, otherwise you're not running, and then you can't stop, otherwise that's not running. And you just think all these things when you're first new to running, you just think, there's a lot more to it than that. And so as time went on, I learned what running really is, and trail running, and then ultra running eventually, and so things just went from there. But so it was kind of a gradual, going back to your question, it was a real gradual process for me, really. And I probably, I still have a bit of a love-hate relationship with running now, but it's that adventure side of it, like the trail running and the ultra running side of it, which is more of that adventure and that kind of unknown, and it's just trying to test yourself and test your body and your mind and see what you can do, really. So that's kind of where it started.
How did the Edam go then, after you'd signed up for that?
So it was okay, actually. I remember so then that would have been the 21 then, in the September, August, I think it was then, August 2021. But I had a training plan for that, and I was pretty regimented with my training plan, and in that, like, I was the most mileage I did in one go was about 32 mile. But I was, like I said, I was as fit as I've ever been then, and my pace was good, and so I did the Edam. I mean, it was probably still one of the hardest races I've done, just because that year it was biblical rain, like from start to finish. It was unbelievable. And I was very new to the ultra running side of things, so like I didn't really have the best kit. I had, like, my shoes were okay, but like I had just cheap shorts, and I remember just the chafing in between my legs. Man, fucking hell, that was agony. I remember when I finished, like, it chafed because it was so wet. I didn't change my shorts, and I just chafed pretty much from start to finish. And I remember getting in the shower after I finished. It was agony, and that was
the worst thing ever.
That was the worst I've ever chafed. But I never made that mistake again, because I didn't have lube or anything then, so it was just, and different shorts, and so I've never had that issue again. But it was good. I like it that year. I did it in just under 11 hours.
That's good going.
Yeah, and that was, I was really pleased at the time. I think it was like joint 10th or something. And I met Steph Harris. You know Steph Harris? He's done quite a lot of the Pegasus events, and so he was doing that event at the same year. And from about halfway, like, we were kind of back and forth, and then eventually we just stuck together, and that was nice. And that was kind of the one thing you get from ultra running, that you meet these like-minded people, and you, on events that long, you're going to pass people so many times and come back and forth. But then, we stuck together because we were running similar pace, and it was kind of for both of us, I think it was we needed someone, just because it was so wet and it was so miserable, and it was just having that camaraderie and almost that support to get through that race. And but yeah, it was a good race, but it was hard. But that, like I said, because I did it in under 11 hours, like I pushed myself pretty hard to get that. But it was it was enjoyable.
Doing that course in that time, in the conditions like rain, that is not a course you want to be rained on.
No, because it was slightly different then, because it starts and finishes in Bilth now, doesn't it? But it started and finished that year at the visitor centre, on the Epic Visitor Centre, which I think was the last year they did that. So yeah, I remember literally as it started, as Reece was doing his talk, the heavens opened, put my jacket on, and that was, I never took it off until I finished the race. Like, it was just unbelievable. And and of course you've got bogs and God knows what else up there. It can be pretty harsh at the best of times, but on that day it was particularly rough. But it's on my doorstep. I grew up at the foot of the Ep in a little village called Tarabad, which we actually, one of the checkpoints is you actually run through the village to get to third checkpoint, I think. And so I had my family there, and they met me a couple of times, and so that was nice. So it's, it was almost like a home race for me, and now I just live in Newbridge on Wye, which is near Bilth. So again, it's on my doorstep. So it's kind of one I had to tick off, but
yeah,
it's one I said I'd never do again, just because of how brutal it is. Because you think where you're going, and I think, I know where I am now, and then you go up the next hill and down, and you can see the next hill coming up in front of you, and it's just like that, like 5 or 6 times towards, especially the second half, and you just think, I thought I knew where I was, but I just literally have no idea now, because it all looks exactly the same. But it did help having someone to run with, definitely.
Yeah.
But it was good. I did enjoy it, but I wouldn't do it again.
What sort of kept you in running then? Because you said you always hated running, you thought you'd try it again, you've done your ultras, and you're still not 100% sold on it by the sounds of things.
No, I don't know. I think it is I do enjoy it, but I have, I'll have a block where I'll do 3-4 months training for an event. And when I've done that event, then I really struggle to keep my motivation to go again, unless I've got something else planned. So I think I just have this bit of a love-hate. You've got the graph where you just have these peaks and troughs, and at the moment I'm probably on a bit of a peak because I'm training for the Bowen. And I know I've got something to work towards, and I've got a training plan, and I'm fine. But still, getting out that door some days, you think, can I really be bothered? But I've always, for me, because I've got another daughter now, so I've got 2 young kids under 7, and I've always been conscious about not making my running affect time with them and time with the family. Because obviously, it's school in the week, there's work in the week, and then you come to your weekends and you've got long runs to do, or you've got an event. So I've always been conscious about not having my running affect that too much. So a lot of my training is either in the week, it's either after the kids have gone to bed, or weekends. Then it'll be first thing in the morning before the kids get up, especially long runs. Because I don't want it to affect the time we have with them, because otherwise then my wife's just looking after the kids while I'm out running, and you can be gone 3.5 hours on a long run or something like that. Or I'll try and tie it in with, the other weekend we were going up to my mum and dad, so I set off early and I ran there, and then the wife followed with the kids in the car. So I try and tailor my running around them almost, and around, just around life and kids, because you've got to, especially when you've got 2 young kids. So I've always done that. I've done that from the start, really. So it's quite hard then to get motivated, especially to go out at night, when ideally I'd like to go out in the morning, but I just can't be asked to get up, to be honest. It's different now when the weather's like this, and the mornings are starting to get lighter, but most of the time
You wake up,
I
it's
struggle to get out
raining,
of bed. Yeah,
you just look outside and you're like, it's so warm in bed.
yeah, I know. And then, of course, then I like to have probably an hour before I go for a run, especially on a long run, so I can have breakfast, just chill out a bit, and not just get out the door. I hate just going straight out the door. Get up, get your kit on, and go, because I just think I just have no motivation, no energy to do it. Like I need to have something to eat, even if I'm going off like a 5-10k run. I still got to have that time to prepare myself. And so yeah, that's how I've always done my running. But yeah, I don't know. It's just, I suppose, if I've got an event that I know is coming up, then I'm fine. It's when I haven't got something planned, then I think it's hard then to think, well, why do I need to go for this run, kind of thing. That's why I need to have something in the calendar really throughout the year. But then you can have, like last year I did quite a few events, especially early, the first 6 months of the year. I probably did, so I do 8 events maybe, like quite difficult events, and that was, I got to June then, and then I was just like, oh, I can't be asked to run at the moment, so I probably did a month or two of just nothing.
Yeah.
But sometimes I just need that just to reset, and then you just go again then and find something else to focus on and go for it. But I just love the simplicity of running. That's why I think I've always come back to it, and I always probably will now. It's just because I enjoy cycling, but it's all the kit that goes with it. It's expensive, and you've got to, it's not so easy just to go out for 20 minutes on a bike, because you think, what's the point? If you're going out on your bike, you've kind of got to do, like, I feel like you've probably got to do an hour at least. Otherwise you get all that kit on, you go through all that hassle just to go out the door and come back. But with running, you can go and do 20 minutes, do a 5k, and you feel like you've still done something.
Yeah.
So that's, running is just the simplicity and the kind of the freedom of it, really.
Yeah.
That's what I enjoy, and that's why I probably keep going back to it.
No, that's a fair reason. It is very simple, like you're saying with a bike. Like, even after you get back, it's like, well, now I got to clean the bike, and
especially mountain biking, you got to clean the thing, and you think, oh, fuck it. So it's like an hour's work for like half an hour ride or an hour ride. And you think, well, is it really worth all that? Is all that hassle?
Yeah, running, just shoes on.
Yeah, exactly.
Out the door.
Yeah.
Doesn't even matter if they're muddy when you get back. Like,
No.
Leave them outside for a bit.
Exactly, that's what I did. All my trail shoes, they just stay outside until they clean themselves.
It's a good way.
Stick them in front of the fire to dry off, and then away to go.
Oh no, yeah, really good way of doing it. Just people always moan about their stinking trail shoes. Just rain.
Exactly.
Let it rain on them.
Yeah.
They're gonna get wet when you run in the rain anyway. So
like, they're not gonna rust. They're not gonna, there's nothing that's gonna really happen to them. They'll stay dirty, or they'll get clean, and then they're gonna be dirty next time you put them on anyway. So that's the whole point of a trail shoe.
Yeah. So what did you then do after Edam? Like, where's it sort of led you?
So what's I do after Edam? Where were we then? 2021. So I didn't really do anything more than that after the Edam. I did a couple of other ultras, but nothing as long as that, like 32 mile. I did the Rhythm. What else did I do? And I was just doing like local events, and nothing really as hardcore as the Edam. And then it wasn't until last year, no, it was 2024, yeah, 2024, our running club had we're volunteering at the Edam again, because it's our local one, so we took over checkpoint 3, I think it was, and we've done that for the last couple of years now. And for doing that, then the club gets spaces for the Pegasus events for the hundreds, and a couple for the smaller events. And like, I never really thought about doing 100 until nobody had wanted to do the Epona. So we had a place for the Epona for 2025. Then that would have been, and nobody put their name forward. And I was like, well, if I don't do it now, I'm going to have to fork out 250 quid or whatever it is to if I want to do it next time. I can either have this free space, or I got to pay all this money to do it. And you know, like some of the other events with other companies, they're fucking more than that, aren't they? So I was like, well, let's just give it a go. And I spoke to the wife. She wasn't very pleased, but I was like, I'm going to try doing 100. She was like, well, why? You're just mad. I was like, yeah, but you know, it's free, innit?
That is such a good reason.
Yeah.
It's free. Come on.
Like, I don't have to do it all, you know, just see how we get on. Look. She was like, yeah, but I know what you're like. I was like, well, yeah, I'll go all in it. So
Pointless otherwise.
yeah, exactly.
It's the thing where free things just taste better than if you've paid for it.
Exactly, yeah.
If you anything for free, you get it. You're like, I'm going to make the most of this. Because how often do you get a free entry to 100 miles?
Exactly.
Like,
Yeah. Well, and I may not have done a 100-miler yet if that hadn't come up. Not because I'm tight or anything, but it is just having that money. You know, they're not cheap to do one event where, you know, at the end of it you've got, you know, a medal or a buckle to show for it, but for your family they've got nothing to show for it, and you just think, you know, it is very selfish. But that's, you know, running is quite selfish anyway, isn't it? You know, and a lot of runners are selfish. It's just how running is. You know, you're doing it for yourself pretty much a lot of the time.
do you think you need that though? Because like my thing is, I feel like if I haven't done my training, no matter what it is, then I'm a worse person to other people, because I'm like being hard on myself, being like, oh, you should have done that, and then I'm in a mood. And whereas if I've just gone and done it, then I get back and I'm like, I'm just a nicer person 100%. To be around.
Yeah. Oh no, definitely. Like I you know, doing a good run, you feel so much better, and like you say, yeah, it will rub off, because I can be moody at the best of times, and you know, you've got 2 young kids, you've got short fuse. If you're in a mood anyway, then it's very easy then just to blow up. But you know, going for a run is kind of my escape on a lot of that, and is where you can get rid of a lot of that negative energy, and just you come back feeling a lot better as long as the run's gone okay. I did a hill session on Tuesday, and it was for some reason it was the hardest session I've ever done. Done it loads of times, but it was just so hard. And I came back thinking, and I was in a mood with myself then, because I just felt crap because I'd done a crap session. And I just thought, oh, what is the point? Like, why was that so hard? I just couldn't put my finger on it. And then, but I went for a run then on Wednesday, the day after. I had an hour easy session to do. Brilliant, you know, no problem at all. And then you come back thinking, oh, it's just obviously a blip, you know, nothing to worry about. But then you feel good again then, and it's definitely having that. You know, I think you need to be a little bit selfish to be a runner. But like you say, it can have positive effects on, you know, other people around you as well, because of, you know, they just pick up on your mood and how you're feeling. But yeah, I try and limit how selfish I am a little bit. Like this year I haven't entered as many events because last year was quite heavy. I've got other things going on, holidays and stag do's and quite a few weddings, and so it's just not having every weekend where I'm either doing something outside of the family to do with my friends or something to do with running, because it can get too much then, and it's surprising how quickly weekends go if you're always doing something every weekend. And again, with my training being at night, or you know, trying to work it around the family, it's my way of trying to be unselfish about it, but still I am still doing it for me, really. You know, it's my escape, and it's my way of keeping fit, really. It is everything it's all encompassing. So then going on from 20, so I had that free space then. Nobody else had wanted it. I put my name down, but nobody else had gone for it for the 100. But because there was, I think we had a place for the wild horse as well, so a couple of people had put their name down for that. So nobody had wanted to do the 100, so I said, yeah, I'll do it, and we went from there. And then in October then 24, I was entered to do backyard ultra, my first backyard. So that was Manchester Backyard Ultra. And I've always enjoyed trying to vary my events. I've never really gone back to the same event time after time, just because I don't really like doing that. It's one of the things, like with the Edam, I know the course has slightly changed, but I've done it and I don't really feel the need to go back and do it again.
Yeah.
Like, I did it in less than 11 hours. I'm never going to do it as fast as that again. So I've got no real pull to go back. And that's a lot of runs I do. I don't really want to repeat myself, just because you think, well, I've done it. There is a couple of local ones, which are, there's a good trail half marathon, the Ron Skilton half marathon in Llwyd, but it costs like 15-20 quid to enter. So yeah. And it's on my doorstep, and it's a good event to do, and it supports MNDA. So something like that is just a no-brainer to go back to, because it's on my doorstep and it's cheap and it's fun. And then I do Raid Around the Lakes 30k. I've done that one for the past few years, but again, it's on my doorstep and it's cheap, and it's always a good one, because it's in. So it was about 2-3 weeks ago now. So it's always at the beginning of March. So it's always like the first event in a training block, almost, kind of thing. So you can always lead up to that and then build from that. So that's what I always use that for. But other than that, yeah, I don't tend to go back, because I don't. That's just how I am. I don't really want to be repeating myself.
Yeah.
And so coming into 2024, I was trying to find different events. Something that was just a bit different that I hadn't done before. So that's why I wanted to try a backyard. And so that I did that in October. But building up to that then. So in 2024, September 2024, I was building up to that, and that's when I helped save someone's life in September 2024.
Okay.
So I was training for the backyard. I'd set out this weekend block I had. It was September 14th, 2024. I'll remember it for as long as I live. That weekend I planned to do 12 miles on Saturday, 12 miles on the Sunday. So I'd set out to go early-ish on the Saturday, to, as I always do, to try and keep the day free almost for the family. But because it was 12 mile, what's that, 2 hours of running, something like that, I was like, well, I don't need to go too early. So I set my alarm, and I was ready to go for about 7:30. Ready to go for 7:30, and just as I was about to go out the door, my daughter woke up. So I spent 5-10 minutes just dealing with her. I don't know if I got her breakfast or get the telly on or whatever, just make sure she was okay before I set off. And then set off. I was just going to go from Newbridge down to Bilth, which is it's about 6 mile along the back road, which was the old A470, and back. So it was just out and back, just simple, nothing too strenuous, just an easy 12 mile. And as you go out of Newbridge on the old road, there's a bit of a climb, probably about a K long, just a pretty gradual climb going out. And I got to the bottom of this climb, and you can see quite a long way ahead. So I can see this person in front of me, way ahead. I remember thinking at the time, for some reason, I just thought, oh, it's a woman. I was like, okay. Didn't really think. So, and then I was trying to think, oh, who could it be? Who do I know who runs, and who could it be? And just these things that go through your head. So I set off. I thought, well, nothing more of it. And as I got round the corner at the first part of the hill, you can see where the hill crests then further on ahead. And I could see this person then had stopped at the top of the hill, and they were stretching. And again, didn't think anything more of it. I still hadn't realised who it was, but then I could see it was a bloke. And as I got to within probably 100, 200 yards, they turned and took off again. We were both going the same way at that time then, down towards Bilth. So again, didn't really give it much thought. I was still thinking, oh, who could it be? What were they doing? Kind of thing. Why were they stretching there in the middle of the road? But you just think, well, maybe they're doing some hill efforts or something, or anything, because they took off like lightning, like they were gone. And I thought, well, I'm not seeing them again then, because they're, I was just doing easy pace. And then another 300-400 yards round, further on down the road, then came round this corner, and I could see them. They were just on the side of the road. And then who I realised who it was then. It was my friend Darren, who's part of the Bilth Running Club. He's a little bit older than me, but he's fit as a fiddle. Like he's probably one of the first people in Bilth Running Club who did an ultra, probably, that got into that kind of scene.
Yeah.
Back in 2019, 18, before ultra running really took off. But I knew he'd had some issues with his ankle or his Achilles or something lower leg. So I thought, well, that's why he's stretching then, and that's why he stopped again. Obviously, he's felt something, and maybe something's gone. So as I came up to him, he was on the left-hand side of the road. I was on the right. I thought, well, I've got my phone. If he needs something, I can get a lift, or if he can't run, then I can help him out. So as I came parallel with him, I said, everything all right, mate? And he said, no, not really. And as he said that, he went to sit down on the road, which I thought was a bit strange. But literally, as he sat down, he collapsed back. And I was like, oh, shit, what's going on here? So I ran across the road. Like, I didn't even have a chance to say anything else, like, what's the matter or anything. He just literally sat down and collapsed. So I ran across the road, and I had my phone on me, so I was trying to get response from him. I thought maybe he's just fainted, and he smacked his head pretty hard on the road. He's knocked himself out or something. So I was trying to get response from him, shaking him and pressure points in the ear and giving him a slap and things, and there was no response. So I thought, oh, fuck, I'm gonna have to phone the ambulance. And all this time I'm thinking, as soon as I phone the ambulance now, I bet you'll wake up and he'll be like, what are you doing? I don't need an ambulance. He was that kind of bloke. So I phoned the ambulance, and I remember saying, can I have the ambulance, please? And like almost looking for a response from him, because I thought, as soon as I say that now, he's going to say something. But no, there's nothing. And the first thing one of the first things they say on the call is the patient breathing? And it was at that moment then I hadn't really twigged to think of that until she said it. But then I'd had first aid training through work and things, so I knew what to do, how to check. So I just went straight into to a really focused mode then of, right, got to check his breathing. So I hand on chest, face to his face. No, he's not breathing. Oh, fucking hell. So I just went straight into compressions, and it was literally just me and him for 10-15 minutes. I was chatting to, obviously, the call handler. I was trying to chat to him, just to speak to him and tell him everything was going to be all right, and all the while doing chest compressions. Like, if you've never seen someone in that position who's going through cardiac arrest, like it's the agonal gasps, they call it, which I've heard of before, but if you've never seen it in real life, it's really disorientating, because it feels like they're trying to breathe, and it looks like they're trying to breathe. So the call handler was like, I was talking to him all the time, is there any response? And I was like, well, it feels like he's trying to do something. Like, it feels like he's breathing. So she was like, right, stop for a minute then, and see what happens. So this was probably after about 5-6 minutes. So I stopped doing chest compressions, and she said, is anything happening? He did probably 2 more of these agonal gasps, and then nothing, like just completely silent. And you could just see the colour drain from his face, just like an egg timer. It was unbelievable to see, like in real life, that actually it literally just went from, a nice colour to white. And I was like, oh no, he's not breathing. So I was straight on to chest compressions again. And then there was a moment where I'd never done compressions on anybody, obviously, before. I'd done it on a doll, doing first aid training and things, but it's a completely different situation. And, you've got sounds, and you've got movements, and you've got foam in the mouth, all these things that a doll isn't doing. And so you don't know if you're doing it right, really. That's the one thing you think, am I doing it enough? Am I doing it hard enough? But as I started again then to do the chest compressions, you just see literally the colour coming back to his face, and it was quite a nice feeling in a weird way to know at that moment. Then I was like, okay, I'm doing it right, so I just got to keep going now. And so it was about 15 minutes probably after he collapsed. The fire engine turned up. They were the first responders from Bilth turned up. But it was strange for them as well, because a few of them knew who he was. They're his mate, because they were all retained firefighters in Bilth. So they're just all got other jobs, and they all knew who Darren was. But they took over then, and I kind of took myself away from the situation. I just went up the road a little bit just to have a moment and just have that release of adrenaline, then just have a cry to myself, and just that emotion came out. Because it was me and him for that time until they turned up. So so they went to work on him. They had the defib and oxygen and whatever. And I think it was probably only about 5 minutes then later, that maybe even less than that the first ambulance turned up. And so then they take the lead, and they've got their own defib and adrenaline and whatever else they do. I don't know. I wasn't really around the situation at the time, but it was, as time's going on, you think, oh, fuck, this isn't looking good. Like after shock, nothing. And it was about 45 minutes maybe after he first collapsed. He'd been shocked 4 or 5 times maybe, and you just think, yeah, this isn't gonna have a good outcome. I've just literally seen someone die in front of me, and that's the kind of thoughts you're having. And I'll never forget this paramedic's voice. It was a young lady, I can't remember her name now. I have met her since, but she they shocked him again anyway, and everyone stood back, and she checked his pulse, and she said, I've got a faint pulse. And just those words it was like everything went silent, the whole rest of the world except her voice. Like, she didn't shout it, it was just, I've got a faint pulse, and I was probably 30-40 meters away, but it was just the clearest voice I've ever heard. And that was a hell of a feeling then, to think, fucking hell, he's he might have a chance. And then they put me in the ambulance, air ambulance turns up, and I got my wife then to come and pick me up, and I was only 10 minutes down the road when this happened, so I was only just outside of Newbridge. And then it's just that whole day then was just a real weird feeling, because you just you've been through all that at 8 o'clock in the morning and then 10 o'clock I was taking my kids to a bloody birthday party, and you just think, none of these people here know what has just happened this morning, and everyone's just getting on with their life, and life does go on. But yeah, all for a day or two then, it was a weird feeling, almost like numb, because you didn't really know what to feel.
Yeah.
But people were saying, are you okay? How do you feel? And I was like, I don't really know, to be honest. Like, I don't know what to feel in that situation. I've never been in this situation.
Yeah.
And you don't, all I could think of was, at the time, was Darren, because he's the one that's still fighting for his life, even though he has come back from the dead. He's still still not out of the woods. So that was a weird couple of days. But then I spoke to my wife. I remember speaking to my wife on the way to take the kids to the party, and I was like, I'm very matter of fact about a lot of things. Like, I don't things like that don't affect me as much as it may affect other people. Or you don't know until you've been in that situation how it will affect you. But with a lot of things, I don't really overcomplicate things too much, and I don't overthink about things. So I said to her, this isn't going to put me off running, you do know that. And she said, no, I wouldn't expect it to. And so that was quite a nice moment then, because I wasn't sure how she would react to me being in that situation. It could really, you could think, well, that could happen to you, and I don't want you to be in that situation. And again, coming back to that selfishness of a runner, I still want to run, and I still doing it for the right reasons. Even though this has happened, it's very, this is very rare that this could happen to me. It may, but it could happen to anybody, and you don't hear of this very often. So that the day after, then I still went out for my 12 mile, but that was it was my way of processing it. Then was going for my run, being with myself, my thoughts, because I don't like going with music or anything. So I just a lot of the time I'm just thinking, making up stories and and just running in my own head. But it was my time then to process it. Almost that next couple of hours, then I was able to process it, and I came to realize that what I was feeling was almost like a responsibility towards Darren. You know, in that moment when it was just me and him on the roadside, I was responsible for him. You know, I was not responsible for whether he lived or died, but responsible for, you know, it's either I give him a chance to survive or he's got no chance, because there was no one else there. And like for the whole time so the whole time I was doing chest compressions, like no one came past. There was no cars or anything came past. So if it hadn't been me who'd seen him, nobody would have seen him for 15-20 minutes, and then it would have been too late. So I just felt responsible for him. That's kind of how I could compartmentalize it. Was that it was a weird thing to feel, because I wasn't responsible for him. He was now in hospital. He'd had his operation. He was in the best hands possible, and there was literally nothing I could do. But I still had a sense of responsibility for the outcome almost.
Yeah.
But I was in touch then with his daughter. Messaged me, and we were in touch then for the week or 10 days while he was in hospital, and she was keeping me up to date. So that was nice as well. So I felt like having those updates then, it helped me kind of deal with the situation, not just be left completely in the dark thinking, is he okay? Is he not okay? And then I think it was about 10 days, maybe not quite 10 days. He was out of hospital then, and I went to see him. I think it was the day he was out of hospital, the day after, and just to be able to see him, sat in front of me like you are now, that was it. Then I could it was just like a weight off my shoulders, and that was the whole kind of the end of it for me. Then it was just being able to give him a hug and see him there with his family and back at home, with very little side effects, to be honest with you. Like there was no issues with his heart as such, and no issues with his brain, and it just to have that outcome after what happened, it is a bit of a miracle really, but it was just being in the right place at the right time. But as soon as I saw him then, I was like, okay, that's it now. That sense of responsibility just lifted, and so that was a nice moment. But yeah, it was a weird. I wouldn't recommend anybody going through that situation, and I wouldn't want to do it again. But it was a good outcome. So yeah.
What a story.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had no idea where that was going at the start of that story. Yeah, saving someone's life while out on a run.
Yeah.
Just, like you said, like there was just a training run for you. You're just out building up to this event, and you never go out expecting something like that.
Oh, Christ,
unless it's your job, like you're a paramedic.
No, exactly, yeah. And even just the events that kind of led up to it as well. Like I was ready to go out at 7:30. If I'd have gone out the door at 7:30, because he was doing the opposite run that I was doing. So he'd come up from Bilth to Newbridge, and then he was going back down, and I was doing the opposite way. So if I'd have gone out at 7:30, like he would have probably still been coming to Newbridge as I was going. So we would have crossed paths as he was still running. So like I wouldn't have seen him, and just things like that. And then normally doing that run at that time, because it was all on road and I was just going down to Bilth and back, you think there's plenty of people about. I'd never normally take my phone, but again, for some reason that day I took my phone. Just all these little things you think, God, if something had, it was obviously meant to happen that day. I was meant to be there at that moment and that day, and everything, all the stars aligned for him to to have the best chance, because even him collapsing in front of me, like it's almost like he waited for me to get there before he collapsed, because that's kind of how it felt. Because literally, as I ran up to him, within that 5-10 seconds is when he collapsed. And again, if he'd have happened 30 seconds earlier, 30 seconds later, I mean, that 30 seconds could mean a lot of difference between life or death, literally.
Yeah.
Because it's like, I think out of hospital cardiac arrests, you've got like 5% chance of survival or something like that. And that's, and I think that, a lot of that data is in towns and cities, on a back road in the middle of Wales, probably your chances are a lot slimmer than that. So yeah, all the stars aligned that day for him, and it was. I was glad. I am glad that I was there. I'm really glad it was me. By the way that, like, I reacted to it and the way I dealt with it, because you don't know someone else in that situation. You don't know how they're going to deal with it. You don't know if they even know what to do. Like, if I didn't have first aid training and I had to be talked over the phone by someone how to do compressions, and you've never done it before, it might not make any difference. It might help, but just having that little bit of knowledge meant that I could be there, started chest compressions probably a minute or two quicker than maybe someone else who didn't have that knowledge. Or but at the same time, you don't know. I'm very proud of the fact that how I reacted. I was very focused. I've never been so focused, I think, in my life. As soon as she said, "Is the patient breathing?" like, it was like a switch went on in my head, and I knew exactly what to do, and it was just ultra focused just on this person in front of you, nothing else, just this person in front of you and the person on that phone. Anything else could have been going on around me and I would have been oblivious to it almost. But I was very proud of the way I was just focused in on this and just stuck to the task, and the outcome was probably more than you could expect from that situation. But I would never call myself a hero or lifesaver, but I definitely helped. And that's all I can, that's all I'll say, is I definitely helped save someone's life. But the paramedics and that, they were unbelievable. Just how professional they are. It's like you see it on telly and things, but just watching, even like the guys from the fire service, just how professional, and literally everyone knows exactly what their job is. Everyone knows exactly what they're doing. And it is their job at the end of the day, but just to see it firsthand was, it was good to see. But I'd never want to do it again.
How does something like that experience sit with you in like the coming like months, years afterwards? Because like you've got that immediate thing, you've got that shock, and you're trying to process everything, right? You've gone through this extreme situation, and you're like you said, I don't know how to feel about it because I've never done it before. So you're really trying to process what's gone on, and until you saw him face to face, even though you might have known he was all right, like you've got the messages, you might have seen a picture.
That was the thing, like I was getting messages from his daughter, and it got to a point after 4 or 5 days in hospital that they'd brought him out of the coma, and you kind of know then, right, he's going to be okay. He's come round from the coma, he knows who everyone is, he's chatting, and things are going well. But like you say, until that physical moment where you can see him in his house, sat with his family, and then that was the moment that responsibility part of it, which is I know it sounds stupid saying you feel responsible for someone like that, but that's when that all lifted then, and you can just kind of process that whole thing almost in one, and just that you have that time then to, because up until that point my concern was him, whether he'll come through or not, and so I didn't really start processing it probably then until I'd seen him. But it's very difficult to try and process it. But like I said, I'm very matter of fact about a lot of these things, and after I'd seen him, I think that was kind of it for me then. I just got on with it.
Yeah.
You know, just okay, it's done. That's done. Um, I still, went to go and see him and see how he was getting on, and things like that. But then I didn't really the situation itself. I've probably spoke about it so many times with various people, and obviously everyone in the in the town and now wanted to talk about it, and so I think I've just spoke about it so much that it's just been a way of probably processing it myself, just going through it over and over again, and I think it's very difficult to say what I would have felt if the outcome would have been different, but fortunately I don't have to think about that because it wasn't, and so and obviously that helps. It was a good outcome, so if it had been a different outcome, then processing it I imagine would have been a lot more difficult. But like I said, as soon as I was able to see him, then that was kind of it for me, and just got to get on with life then.
Yeah. It's mad to think about how common things like this are, and like you'll just never know.
No.
Like you said, you had to get back to your kids, take them to a party,
Yeah,
and like you're just there like, what's gone on this
Yeah, exactly.
morning, and everything's normal. How's everything normal right
Yeah.
now? Like,
yeah, exactly.
do you guys not feel this as well? And yeah, and you just, if you was on the other side of that, right? Like if you were just someone else at the party and someone's gone through that, you might just look at them and be like, oh, they seem a bit off today.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's like, you have no idea what's happened. And yeah, things like this happen
Yeah.
all the time, unfortunately.
But like those first, especially that first day, probably the first couple of days, I didn't, went to that party and, life went on. Of course, my daughter then would have been 6, my eldest, so a very impressionable age. So I was very aware that I didn't want to speak about it in private, my wife and things, but, for them, the party is everything on that day, and that's what they want to go to, and that's where they're gonna have fun. So you've got to get on with that part of life, and it's just it's that compartmentalizing different things, isn't it? So you just put like that situation with Darren that morning, right? I was put it to the back of your mind for this time while you're at the party, and because those kids are, they're enjoying themselves, they're laughing, they're having, thinking they're having the best time of their life, aren't they? So you kind of got to just put these things to one side and just get on with it, and not show too much. But then, even for those first couple of days, I didn't really want to talk about it too much because I felt like it wasn't, up until I saw Darren come out of hospital, his life was still in the balance. Even that first day, the first 2 days where he was still in a coma, he'd had his op to put a stent in, but those first 2 or 3 days while he's still in the coma, it's still, it's still life or death, really.
Yeah.
So I didn't really want to talk about it too much, and it was never I would never, bring it up. I was getting a couple of messages started coming through about, what's happened, but I didn't really want to go into the detail of it because I thought that's not my story to tell. This is still someone who's fighting for their life, and I don't feel like I want to be going around telling the story at the moment until that moment where I saw him come out of hospital, and then I was like, well, he can tell the story now, so it's his story to tell, and if he's happy for me to talk about it, I'll talk about it with whoever, and and we went through, we had that chat, and it was kind of his thing was just trying to raise awareness about it, really, and so, but those first few days I didn't really talk about it with anyone outside my family because I didn't really, or Darren's family, because it wasn't for me to talk about, and that's how I felt about it.
Yeah.
Obviously now time's gone on and we've done interviews together, both of us, and with the papers and things and various things, but so he's happy for me to talk about it now, and so I will, but those first few days, like, it wasn't my story, and so I didn't really talk about it. But going on that run on that second day, on that Sunday, was how I dealt with it then, and it was coming to a realization of, oh yeah, this is how I actually feel, and then you can deal with it. Once you know how you feel, you can process it, can't you? But that first day, it was like, I don't know how to feel. Just feel numb, for this massive adrenaline spike, gone through all these emotions, when I was just supposed to go out for a little jog. But yeah, but it's still a little bit surreal. I think it'll always be a bit surreal, because you never expect to be in that situation. In any, 99.9% of people will never experience that. They'll never have to go through that, which is probably for the best. But for the 0.1 who do, then I hope that sharing the experience will maybe help them if they have to go through it, or know someone that's gone through it. Because that whole after Darren came out of hospital, 23, so it was about 10 days. Like, he was adamant that he was going to get back running, and he didn't want this to. If he was physically capable, and the doctor said he could, then he wanted to get back to the life he had before, because it's not the running that almost killed him. It's it's a condition that was obviously underlying at some point, and it was gonna happen at some point. It just happened to happen then. Because you never know what's going on inside. He was probably one of the fittest guys I knew. He didn't have an ounce of fat on him, and he, like I said, he'd done ultras, and he was running all the time, and cycling and walking. So you just never know. You never know who's going to happen to. But it goes back to that. The one message that we wanted to get from that was, like, we know runners are selfish, and that's fine, but just think, there is someone, whether it's your wife or kids, your family, friends, there is someone who expects you to be coming back from that run you go out on. So just be aware that, if you're going out on it may be a 5k, it may be 50 mile, just make sure that you're either telling someone where you're going, or you've got your phone, or you're not just being real selfish and just getting your shoes on and just going out the door. No phone, no, nobody knows where you're going, just because you could believe it doesn't have to be a cardiac arrest. You could just twist your ankle, you could do anything, break your leg. It's simple, something simple that could happen, but somebody would be worrying about you somewhere. So it's just making people aware, really, that you can be selfish, but try and think of other people when you're doing a lot of these runs if you can. And so ever since then, every run I've gone on, I've taken my phone, even if it is just a 5k run to park, because it may not be for me. It wasn't for me that day, it was for Darren. And if I hadn't had my phone, who knows where we'd be, because he didn't have a phone. So he probably would be dead, to be honest. And that's the cold hard truth of it. And if people can get out there and just learn about doing basic first aid and chest compressions and things, then all the better, because it again, it could save someone's life, and it's a pretty simple thing to learn. It takes 5-10 minutes of your day, and you can learn how to do chest compressions. So that was what me and Darren really wanted people to take from it. Just try and learn from it, but don't let it stop you. You still got a life to live, to go out there and live it, because he is now. His first run back was the Christmas Day that year, so it happened in September. He went for a run on Christmas Day with his daughter, and then last year he did the Howham, and he's had issues with his leg and stuff, but he's back running as much as he was back then. So and I've been running with him quite a few times. We have a joke about it now, and I have a joke about it with his wife, and say, don't worry, his saving grace is here if he goes down again. Don't worry, I've got him and stuff like that. But yeah, I think for the hardest thing for that whole situation was probably his family having to deal with it, because you know, a Saturday morning, a lovely Saturday morning, that was the last phone call they expected to have, was that, you know, your husband and your dad's had a cardiac arrest on the side of the road. But yeah.
Has that whole experience changed your sort of view on life at all? Like, how has it impacted you and your decisions?
I don't think it really has that much. I think, I don't feel like it had too much of an effect. I think it was a case of, I've always been someone who, you know, you've got a life to live, so live it as much as you can, and to the best of your ability. And if you want to do something, then have a go at it. Just, that's always kind of been how I feel. Is if you want to do something, have a go. If it doesn't work out, it doesn't matter, because you can try something else. So I've always kind of had that outlook on life, probably since I was quite young, really. So for me, I haven't really changed that thought process. I still hadn't changed anything I want to do with running. It hasn't changed how I want to live my life. But just, you have got a life, and you go and live it, because you never know what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Something as simple as that could happen to anybody, anytime. But if you lived your life thinking that, then you wouldn't do anything. You'd just be sat in A&E for the rest of your life waiting for it to happen, wouldn't you? So, you just got to get on with it and enjoy life to the best of your ability, and do the things you want to do. Just try and have no regrets.
Yeah.
And I think, that's probably the one thing that Darren's definitely taken from it. I know, that's kind of his way of thinking now, is he's got a life that he's been given a second chance, so go out and live it, go on the holidays that you want to go on, and if you want to do events, go and do the events you want to do, and just live your life, because it can be very short.
Yeah.
But on the back of that as well, we did so last year, one of the reasons I did so much running was I wanted to do something kind of in his honour to raise a bit of money. And so after he came out of hospital, it was the October or November, I sat down with him and said, like, I want to do something, for you to raise money. Who would you like? Who would be your charity of choice to raise money for? So, he said the air ambulance, which makes sense. Being in Mid Wales, it's vital, really. And of course, I had already had the freer place with the Epona. I'd got into London as well through the ballot last year. So I had London in the April to do, and I had Epona in June. And then I was thinking, well, if I do something in May as well, then I'll have like these 3 challenges over the 3 months, and I can make like a challenge out of it and raise money for charity. So I entered a 24-hour event. I can't remember the name of the company now, but it was along the Offers Dyke. Started up right on the north coast of the Offers Dyke, and you just run for 24 hours, get as far along the Offers Dyke as you can, basically. And so, but his daughter had a similar thought. Like, she wanted to raise money because she'd had a place for London as well, and she was going to do her first ultra in, I think she was doing her first ultra in June as well, in the Lake District. And so she was going to do it for the Air Ambulances UK. So we thought, well, we'll come together and we'll kind of do fundraise separately, but on Just Giving you can do like a team fundraising thing. So we thought we'll just band together and raise as much money if we can for Air Ambulance UK. So I was through Bilth Running Club. Then I got the coach Bob Smith helped me out start of January last year, and we just did this big training block really for April, May and June, and so it was pretty intense the first 6 months of last year, and I probably got a little bit burnt out after that, to be honest. But so we but between us, we raised over £12,500 for
Oh wow.
Air Ambulance UK. Yeah. So, but it was good. And I was doing events that I hadn't done before, and they were like I was going back to wanting to try different things. I know London, it's just a road marathon, but it's London Marathon. It's this biggest marathon in the world, and the 24-hour event, that was something I'd never experienced. But again, that was something a little bit different, a little bit quirky. I did it pretty much self-sufficient. There was a few checkpoints, but I pretty much did it all by myself. And then all led up then to the Epona in June. But yeah, they were very different events, very different outcomes for three of them. But it was all, it was all part of the fundraising. And yeah, I couldn't, being from a little town in mid Wales, you could never really think to raise that much money. But the community came together, and yeah, we raised a lot of money.
That is a hell of a lot of money as well.
Yeah.
That is amazing that you managed to raise that much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was, like, I think the funny thing is, out of those three events, I think London Marathon was probably the hardest one.
Really?
Yeah.
How come?
Well, last year it was boiling hot in London, for one. And there was, 60,000 runners, whatever it is. But it's just the intensity of it. Like, it's so, I don't know if you've ever done it before, but it is just, I can't explain it. There was just people everywhere. Like, the whole route is just full of people spectating, which is unbelievable. But then you're surrounded by people the whole time. Like, obviously there's so many people in actually doing the event as well. Like, there's never a moment where you feel like you can just have a second just to breathe. And with it being so hot last year, like, I'd wanted to do sub 3:30 marathon. I trained to do that, but it came to about, I don't know, I was probably about 10 mile in, maybe not even that, and I just thought, this isn't going to happen today. It was just so hot. There was just no air at all in London that day, because it was hot, and there's all these people in all the buildings and everything, all the heat's reflecting. I just felt like I couldn't get enough water down me. Every stop I was trying to hydrate, and it was just wasn't enough. And so I just made the decision just to enjoy it, really, and get round. But it just is so intense. I'd recommend the experience to anybody, but it is, you've got to be prepared to be, don't think of it as, unless you're an elite runner, you're not going to get a PB, because there is just too many people. You're stopping and starting, you're going round, and just go there for the experience. Because I'd love to do it again, but go into it knowing what I know from it before, not thinking, right, I'm going to PB a marathon here. Just go because it's London Marathon and it's unbelievable. And you get to a point, I remember getting to about 21 mile, and I had my name printed on my t-shirt. Like, I had the Air Ambulance t-shirt, and I had my name printed on it. And literally all the way from minute 0 all the way to the end, people are shouting your name. And I just got to a point, I was like, please stop shouting my name, because I just it's just overwhelming now. Everyone wants me to do well, and I just feel like I'm dying. I just want the ground to swallow me up for a minute, just so I can have just some peace. But it's incredible. But and obviously the sights, and going over London Bridge, Tower Bridge, and Cutty Sark, and all those iconic things. But it's just, you past them before you can really think about it.
Yeah.
So if I was to do it next time, I'd make sure that you just enjoy the experience and not think of it as this is a marathon that I've got to go and run fast in. Because with all those people, it's very difficult to do that, because you can't find your own pace, even though you're with people who are of a similar pace to you. You do eventually find your similar pace, but then even then, there's just so many people. It only takes one person to slow down a little bit, and then the whole thing concertinas, and you got to go round. But it was probably the hardest one, though, I think, out of the three, because the 24-hour event then did that in May. I think it might have been. It was only maybe 2 weeks after London, which, thinking about it now, wasn't enough time to recover. No, because London was so draining with the heat, and it's still 26 mile. At the end of the day, it's a lot in your legs. So I got to. So doing the office dike, I only managed to do 19 hours. I pulled out after 19 hours. My quads were as tight as anything could ever be. Like, I could hardly move on a flat or downhill, but going uphill I was fine. And I just got to a point, I thought, if I carry on, I'm gonna injure myself, and I know in 5 weeks I've got the Epona to do, which was my main goal anyway that year. So I stopped after 19 hours. I still, I did 60 mile, 61 mile. But then I didn't really do much running then. Between the 24 hour, I pretty much had a week where I did nothing because my legs were knackered.
Yeah.
And my quads and hammies was just so tight. I did a couple of weeks of just light running, and then before the Epona, I pretty much had 2 weeks where I did nothing, and I think that was probably the best thing that could have happened, because I went into the Epona feeling like I didn't have enough training in my legs, but because I'd been training since January, I'd done this massive training block. Like, all the training was there.
Yeah.
It's just in your mind then, isn't it? My legs were fine, but I didn't know how my legs were going to react on the Epona after having what had happened in the 24 hours. But the Epona, I don't think the Epona could have gone any better. Like, that was the one race where I feel like it was almost like the perfect race for me.
Yeah.
Everything just fell into place. My nutrition was great, my hydration was great, my pacing was great, and I had my best mate joined me from Talabont Dam, which was checkpoint 4, something like that, and he ran with me through the night. So all that was perfect. Like, if you're going to do, and for anyone doing 100 mile, I would recommend having someone to run with at night, because it is the time where your mind can play tricks on you, and just having someone just to help you through, it helped me massively, because you can just focus on anything else then other than you're running. You just put your one foot in front of the other and you chat shit and you just get through the night. But I just felt like everything was just perfect that day. Like, it was just, the weather was great. It wasn't too hot, it wasn't too cold. We had a little bit of rain at night, but I just and for it being my first event of that nature, like 100 mile, I don't think it could have gone any better, which was really pleasing. And I think having that 2 weeks of pretty much not doing anything before definitely helped my legs, because I remember getting to the second climb of the Sugarloaf, and then you've got that long downhill and all the way into Abergavenny. It was windy as hell up on top of the Sugarloaf, and you get down off that first real steep section, it plateaus a little bit before you go through the woods, and I just bombed it down then. I just thought, fucking, well, I'm 5k from the end. Just go for it. I can just see what happens.
Imagine thinking that after running 100 miles.
I know,
that's only 5k.
Well, that's what I was thinking. I was like, I know it's all downhill for me now. So, and I love doing downhills. Like, a technical downhill is my favourite thing to run on.
I'm with you.
The more technical, the better.
100%.
And it's not the most technical down there, but it is. After running 95 mile, every stone, you got to pick your feet up, and it does get more technical. So I just pegged it, and I just remember just that last 5k was just fun. I just remember thinking, this is fun now. And I felt like I was running 100 mile an hour. I wasn't running that fast, but after that time it was quick. And so I get into the finish then. I think I was about 32 hours, just under 32 hours. I just felt good, I felt really good, and I'd never felt like as good as that after an event, I think, because you always have these things where you think, oh, I could have done this or I could have done that, but there was not one thing in that event I think, oh, I could have done that better, which was, it's an amazing feeling to have.
Yeah.
It was my birthday then, the day after the Epona, or 2 days after. And me and my wife went for a 5 or 6 mile walk, and my legs felt brilliant. And I thought, how's this happened? Just ran 100 miles yesterday. Why do my legs feel so good? But yeah, so that was, but it was all building up to that last year, and then after that, then it was a bit of I had that 6 months of real intense training, and like my wife knew I was doing all this for charity, and we discussed it, and it was going to be intense, and there was going to be a lot of weekends where I was going to races because the coach wanted me to go and do. I did Llanelli half, I did Great Welsh half. I did these other events in between as part of my training, so there was a lot of weekends where I was running. So, but I'd already committed to it almost, and so I didn't feel as bad about doing it then. But it was all for the fundraising at the end of the day, and to raise as much as we did, it was made it all worth it, really. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. That's such an experience to have for your first 100 miler as well, and then to have that purpose behind it as well. It's just that another level, another reason to get you through.
Well, yeah, maybe thinking about it, that that was why it went so well. There was a reason for it, the reason why you're doing it, and it was to raise this money. And it was literally June the 22nd, was it last year, or June 21st, something like that. Well, I'd been fundraising since January, so I'd pretty much all that money in the bank anyway, which was for doing the 3 events, but the big one was the 100. And so I suppose there was a little bit of pressure on me to perform, and I put that pressure on myself because I hadn't completed the 24 hours. I felt almost like I'd not let people down, but hadn't committed. I hadn't done what I'd committed to do. So that the 100 mile, I was like, right, I'm not. Whatever happens, I'm getting through this 100 mile, and maybe. So there was a little bit of pressure on me to do that, maybe, but then I didn't put the pressure on myself in a way that, I knew I was going to complete it because for this reason, I had to complete it because I hadn't completed the last one. I wasn't going to fail again. And so I in a way there was pressure to complete it, but for me there probably wasn't the pressure because I knew I was going to finish it anyway, and it was just how I finished it, and the time wasn't really relevant. Obviously you've got 50 hours or whatever you've got to complete it, so I knew the time wasn't an issue. It was just how I wanted to do it for myself.
Yeah.
And I said there was a couple of other guys Joe did it as well last year again, and a couple of other guys from Bilth Running Club who did it as well. And I purposely, they probably wouldn't mind me saying it, they're generally a little bit slower than I would be, but I purposely stuck with them at the start for quite a few mile to hold back a little bit and slow myself down, because that's kind of how you've got to run these events. You've got to, you can't go balls deep in the first 10 mile, otherwise you'll, especially when you go straight up the Sugarloaf as your first 5 mile or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And so I ran my own event, and I was really pleased with how I paced my event and ran my event. And then I probably ran with them until about 30-40 mile, up until the Crickhowell sleep stop. No, just before that I'd left them. As you come down off the Table Mountain into Crickhowell, I pretty much left them up there. But I was feeling good then, and I was like, right, this is my time now where I can go, and I've held back up to this point. Now I can go and run my own event, and that's what I did. Because then I knew from Crickhowell to the Talabont checkpoint, like I'd run that section on my own. But I mean, that was pretty much all on the canal, and then you got Tour of Oil, and then I was going to have someone to run with again. So I knew, I was pacing myself almost between checkpoints to get myself to the next checkpoint, and not looking at it as a 100-mile event as such. You just going from one checkpoint to the next. and a lot of the night running we did, there was a lot of walking in there and taking our time, but then the weather came in a little bit. But having someone to go through that with then definitely helped the mind, because then when he left me at 6 o'clock in the morning, well, it's coming light again then. So I set out on my own again then up the Blorenge, but I just felt good again then. Felt knackered, but obviously you're going to feel like that. I remember getting to the top, just almost to the top of the Blorenge, and it was about 7 o'clock, 7:30 in the morning. I thought, I am fucking knackered. Like I am so tired. I'd been going for 24 hours or whatever it was. I just thought, God, I am knackered now. So I just phoned my wife. Like, she'd just woken up, the kids were woken up, so we just had a chat for 10 minutes. And then I was fine. And it was just that, just that 10 minutes distraction I needed, just to not think of how I could just fall asleep standing up kind of thing. And then off you go again. But and I remember then getting into Abergavenny then, because it was back up the Skirrid Sugarloaf again. And I remember thinking, before the event, that is disgusting. That is torture that they'd put that in. You get so close and you've got to go out and do this.
Yeah, that small loop at the finish.
Yeah, I know. And you think, how cruel can someone be to put that in? But then when I got there to the, 90 mile or whatever it is, and have to go, I was excited to get back out then, because I knew, okay, I'm finished now, pretty much. I've got another half marathon or whatever to do, but I'm finished now. This is my finish point.
I love that. I've got another half marathon to do, but I'm finished.
Yeah,
but in perspective of the 100 miles,
exactly,
but imagine saying that to someone that's never run like an ultra before. So I only had a half marathon left.
But if I'd have said that to myself before, I'd be thinking, you're fucking mad. You've got to be up at Sugarloaf and the Skirrid. I'd never been up Skirrid before, and that was going up that side of Skirrid. That was hard. That was the hardest part. That was steep. Like those steps, they're about this tall. And I was like, fucking hell, this is hard work. But yeah, as soon as I got to that last checkpoint, like I felt $1 million then, and I was like, right, I'm finishing it. Just how fast do you want to get around this last half marathon? Because I'd said to my family, well, I'll probably be back about 3 o'clock, somewhere around there, 2 o'clock, and I was pretty bang on with my time, and I think it was about 3 o'clock I got back. But it was just a bit of a, stupid to say, but almost like a victory lap that last half then, because I didn't think of it as, oh God, I've got to go back out and I'm finishing and literally behind this building, and I've still got another half marathon to do. But I didn't think of it like that when I got there, which is, funny how that mindset had changed then, because before it, you think when you get to that point, you're not going to want to go out and do that last little bit. But I was looking forward to getting out, because that was the final piece. That was, like I said, that was almost like the victory lap. Yeah. And I knew I was going to do it then, so I wasn't worried about going out to do this last bit, because I knew I was going to finish, and there was no chance that I wasn't going to complete it. So yeah, it's funny how your mind goes through these things when you're doing these events. Because I remember being in the 24 hour. I remember starting in the evening. I felt really good up until this one checkpoint, and then there was it was only a little company that put this event on, so there's only little checkpoints, and there wasn't, they're not like Pegasus checkpoints where there's a whole banquet there. There was a couple of little chairs and a few bits of fruit and a couple of bars and things. So I sat there for a little bit, and it was just coming. The night had just come in, so I left this checkpoint. It was down this steep, real rocky descent down into Pontycysillt, where the aqueduct is.
Yeah.
Running down into there, and I kicked this stone with my toe, and fucking hell, I thought, this is. I thought my toe was broken. Like, I was in agony, and I was just really annoyed then. And I get to the canal then in Pontycysillt, and it was quite dark then. And I just thought, oh, my toe was hurting. I was just running along a canal. I was thinking, this is shit. Like, this is awful. Why am I doing this? Why don't I just stop? and then I turned off the canal. Oh no, I tell you what, there was a canal boat. There was a couple of canal boats on the canal with obviously people are in it because they had their lights on. And I was thinking, I wonder if they would, if I knocked on their door now, would they let me in? Would they let me have somewhere to sleep, or could I have a cup of tea? And I just go, all these thoughts go through my head, and then there was a load of benches as well, and I was thinking, I could just lie down there now and just go to sleep for a bit. But it was quite cold. I thought, if I do that, I'm just going to freeze to death. So I just all these thoughts go through your head, and as soon as I turned off the canal, back up into the hills, I just put a podcast on my phone and just switched off, and I was going up behind Chirk, and you could just see all the lights going up, people, the odd car going past in the distance, and the lights from the towns, and I was just thinking, this is lovely now, just the peace and the solitude of just being on this hill, no one else around, because there was no other competitors there at the time. I said, this is quite good now, actually. So you go from half an hour ago hating your life, running along a canal, to now really enjoying where you are.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I'd ever done any night running, like through the night. But I loved it. I loved just that the solitude and the quietness and the just your own. I love being in my own head when I'm running. That's why I don't listen to music. I've started listening to podcasts a little bit, but I still can't listen to music. But I just love my own thoughts and making up stories and how I'm going to win the lottery and all, just all these random thoughts that go through my head. And in that moment, then when doing this 24-hour event, I just thought, oh, this is lovely now. No one else is. Everyone's in bed, and it's just me on this hill doing this event. This is great. And then my legs fell apart, but then that's a different story. My mind was still okay.
It's usually the other way around, really. Isn't
Yeah,
it?
I know.
People's minds go, and they're just like, "Nah, I'm gone."
Well, it was so strange because like we were going every uphill I was flying, like I was fine, and then as soon as it came to a flat or downhill, my quads were just in bits, and I was like, oh, fuck, this is every step was agony then going down.
Yeah.
And like as bad as I've ever had with my quads, but yeah, there we are. We live and learn.
What's next for you then? I know you said you've got Bowen coming up, where I'll see you there.
Nice.
Other than that, what's this year got in store for you?
So it's basically the Bowen, and I've signed up to the Devona as well, the new 100 with Pegasus. So I'm doing that last September.
I'll see you there as well.
Yeah. But other than that, I haven't really got much in between, to be honest.
Okay.
I'm doing in May. I'm doing a 10-hour endurance challenge, Limitless Trails event, just outside Talga. I think it's Mynydd Troedd. You basically just go up and down this hill for 10 hours as many times as you can. So I'm doing that in May, and then I had signed up to do Race the King 100k down Oxford way in June. But when I told the wife about that, she wasn't very pleased, so I've deferred that to next year. Because in May I'm going away to Morocco for a stag do. We're going to climb Mount Toubkal.
Nice.
So I'm doing that in May, and then in June my dad's taking me and my brother away to France for like an adventure week to Morzine. So when I'd said I was going to do this 100k in Oxford, which is like the week before we go to France, she was like, no, because it's our anniversary weekend as well. And normally it wouldn't bother her too much because we don't really do much for our anniversary, but with the fact that I'm doing all these other things, she's like, no, you're not doing that. So I was like, okay, I'll do it next year.
No, that's
yeah, other than those three, really, I haven't really got much else, and I probably won't plan much else in, to be honest, just because I've got weddings and like I said, stag do's, and there's lots of other stuff to be doing this year. And because I had such an intense year last year, it's just quite nice just to have a year where it's not quite so intense.
Yeah.
And there's a few other local races I'll probably do later on in the year and things, but they're just as and when, really. You just kind of sign up on the weekend and go for it. Trail halves and things like that. But the Devona is going to be the big one for me.
Nice.
I'm a little bit unsure about that one because of the Epona went so well. I think, no, I can't. It won't go that well again, or the chances are it won't.
Yeah.
So it's how you deal with that. But it's on my doorstep. It's literally the start of it is, what was it, 7-8 miles from my house? So it was
Run there for a warm up.
Well, you could. There is a nice actually trail up to Ray though, where the start is from my house.
We'll all come and park at yours.
Yeah, there we are.
Then, yeah, we'll run
I
down
can charge for
together.
parking then as well.
Make your money back from the entry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Sorted.
Yeah, I've had to pay for this one. Thanks, Reese. But no, yeah. So that's my big focus this year. And a lot of the area, where the run is going, I know a lot of the area as well. So it's kind of nice to get out there and do some localist trails, really. And I kind of couldn't not do it when it was so close to home.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's it really for this year, and 100 miles is as far as I'm going to go.
Yeah.
I won't do anything more than that.
So no wild horse then?
No wild horse. No, I got no interest in doing.
Callan
No, no. And I've got, for me, it's up to a point. Like 100 miles is, even that, it's a running event, but it gets to a point where it's all about your mind. You can be as fit as you want to be, but it's all in your head up to a certain point. But you can do it in 30 hours, 30 hours, so it's just over a day.
Yeah.
But like the wild horse and things, where you're out 4 or 5 days, like that's, well, and Callan you're going to be longer than that. Like that's a commitment that it doesn't appeal to me. The multi-day events like that just don't appeal to me. Well, no, I say the multi-day events don't. If it was like like the Dragon's Back kind of,
like the stage race,
almost, that appeals to me more. But just doing there's 200 miles, off you go, see you at the finish. That's not an event that appeals to me at all.
Fair. Right, taking it full circle then, going back to the person we were talking about at the start that had the call to adventure, that gradual build into everything you've just talked us through. What advice would you give that person before they answer the call?
What advice would I give? Don't take it too seriously. For me, I don't take running too seriously, and I never have. And I don't, it's not against people who do take it seriously, because there's people who, like yourself, you podium at events, and I don't know how serious or not you take your running, but for people who are very good runners, taking it more seriously is probably recommended, because you can achieve your potential. But for some, for me, just a casual ultra runner, inverted commas, just enjoy it. Don't take yourself too seriously, because that's when you'll fall out of the love with it, I think. And that's probably why, when I have the peaks and troughs we were talking about at the start, I have to focus on an event, and I have to train for the event, but with a training plan. If I haven't got a training plan, I'm useless, because I can't motivate myself to go out. But I don't take it too seriously. The events, I think that's something I've learned probably as I've gone through the years and probably got more into ultra running, is slow everything down, just relax, and don't take it too seriously, and have fun.
Yeah.
Have fun out there. The Epona was so much fun. I had a lot of fun, because I didn't think, right, I'm gonna have to do this I need to beat 30 hours. If I don't beat 30 hours, I'm gonna beat myself up about it. It didn't really matter to me. It's getting through a lot of these ultra running events. It's just getting to the finish, and I know it's a bit of a cliche to say that, but that's kind of what it is. And as soon as you go above, for anyone, for someone, for me, it was, when I started, 5k was tough, 10k was tough.
Yeah.
And you never think, oh, I'm going to do 100 miles in a few years, I'm going to get to that point. I was never thinking I was going to get that point. I did my first 10k trail event, enjoyed it, and then I did half marathon, and I enjoyed that. And then you get fitter, and you think, oh, okay, now shall I try a marathon? Although like a road marathon's never been something I've wanted to do. I did do Manchester Marathon a few years ago, but I hated that. Hated every step of it, and I wouldn't recommend Manchester Marathon to anybody. But it's just been that build over the years. And you just think, oh, I push myself a little bit more, but not to prove anything to myself. It's just because I can. I know I can do a marathon, so why not do a few more miles and do an ultra marathon? And then you do 30 mile and you think, oh, I know I can do that now. Why don't I try the 50 mile, do the Edam? Well, I know I can do that now. It's real tough, but I can do it. Why don't we try the 24-hour event now, and just building up all that time, and and then building up to the 100, where I was never in doubt that I could do 100. It's just how I wanted to do it, and it was doing it for me and for pushing myself, really, and not for any. I wasn't doing it for anybody else, and I wasn't trying to win. I knew I wasn't going to win, so it was just enjoying it, and don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
Obviously, the event itself, you've got to kind of, all these events, you've got to kind of take it a little bit seriously. You've got to make sure you plan properly and have the right nutrition and stuff like that. But that's all part of the process. I mean, that comes if you get into that point on the day where you're still, you're thinking, right, if I don't focus now because I'm going to get my nutrition wrong, then you haven't trained properly anyway, because you shouldn't be worrying about that really on race day, because you've already, it's kind of second nature by then, and you've already been through all that process in your build up and in your training, where you've got your nutrition down, you know what works for you, you know what doesn't work for you, and then you can enjoy the day. That's kind of what all that training is for. That's what I think it's supposed to be for. But it's trying to enjoy the training as well, and not take that too seriously, because you'll just find it a chore. And I've had that plenty of times myself. A lot of the training, a lot of the times, it is a chore, but it's probably because I make it more of a chore than it needs to be. As soon as I'm out there, and I'm going for my run, then I'm enjoying myself. I get in my headspace, and I do what I need to do, and I enjoy it, and I don't take it too seriously. And if you can get out with people as well, again, get out with like-minded people, and just there's plenty of clubs out there. I think running has changed, definitely. It's a lot more. Maybe it's not so a lot more ultra focused, but ultra running is a lot more of a focus for running clubs. Where I think running clubs used to be for your marathon and down. It was your road running. It was your
it seems like a lot more social now.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's less about, right, we're gonna just push times. It's like, well, we're just gonna get together and run.
Yeah, and I think that's why they've built up so much, is because of the social side of it, and that's what running should be about, and that's what ultra running's about. I think, unless you're an elite runner, then everyone's got their own means for why they run. But I think why running's got so big is just because it's the ease. Anyone can get their shoes on and go for a run. Doesn't matter how slow or fast you are, and it's become a lot more social. For me personally, I'd still probably rather run on my own, but that's my personal choice. I find it just very laborious having to try and I've got my set runs, and I want to do it when I want to do it. Trying to get everyone else's calendar to align when you want to do your run, or align to someone else's calendar.
It's more the organising of the runs, not the actual running with people.
Oh no, that's it. I there's
just making calendars work.
Exactly, yeah.
Just the standard adult life.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
But then, like I said, I did the hill training on Tuesday, but that's through running club. But doing sessions like that with some people makes life so much easier. Like trying to go for a hill session on your own, you just think, oh, fucking hell, I'll just do one less today, or I'll do, do I really need to do this last one? Or you don't have that push to motivate yourself to do it so much. But just enjoy running, and just don't take it too seriously. And I think the one thing last year, one thing I really enjoyed doing was helping other people running. So I did tail walking for Edam last year. I did some of it from checkpoint 2 onwards, and I was with the last place lady who was like 28 hours, but helping her achieve her goal. This was her like third time of trying to complete the Edam. She'd never been able to do it up until that point. Helping her achieve her goal was great. It's so rewarding having to, going through that process with her.
Yeah.
And then the Sirona, I helped, Joe and Craig Buffton, they ran it together, and I paced for them. And that was so much fun as well, just helping other people achieve their goals. Because I know, like, when I had my mate pacing for me at the Epona, how much that meant to me and how much that helped me. So I think that's the one thing I want to do probably a bit more. And I think I'll do that this year between my events, is just do some pacing for other people and help other people out, because that for me is as much fun as doing my own events. Even though you're only doing a portion of it, it's a lot of fun helping other people achieve what they want to achieve and seeing them achieve.
Yeah. You'll regret saying that to me, because I'm always doing events and I always need pacers, so I'm just going to be straight on the phone to you.
No, that's fine.
Like, Lee, come on.
Yeah,
need a
fine.
pacer?
Well, my brother-in-law is doing the wild horse, so I already plan to do quite a bit with him.
Nice.
He's never done, the furthest he's done is 48 miles, so
Wow, big step up.
But it's having, being able to pass on stuff that I've learned over the mistakes I've made and the years I've been doing ultra running. I may not have done, I've only done 100-mile event, but I've done plenty of other smaller ultras, and I've plenty of running where I've learned what works and what doesn't work, and it may not work for other people, but at least you'll pass that on and they can try these things. So I think I'm going to do a lot more of that, and I've signed up to do the tail walking for the Edam again, because again it's just on my doorstep, and it's just it's an excuse to get out and do these events for almost free, isn't it? Do parts of it. But so I think I'm going to do more of that over the coming years. But who knows where we'll go from there.
Yeah.
But I will not be doing a 200. You heard that here?
Yeah.
No. Well, that's the thing, isn't it? I never thought I'd do 100, and then you get to it. But I've never, like, when I did the Edam, I thought, oh yeah, okay. You have a couple of days, you think I'm never running ever again. But then there was always the thought, 100, yeah, that sounds quite nice, doesn't it? Do 100. But since I've done the Epona, there has not been one thought where I think I'd like to do 200. So that's because I think it's mad. I don't, I have so much respect for other people that do it, and I will help. Like I said, I'll help anyone else do it, but be fucked if I'm doing it myself.
No, completely fair. I do not blame you at all. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, no
I
worries.
really appreciate it. Thanks again for listening to another episode of the Adventure Athletes podcast. If you want to find out more about what we do at Adventure Athletes, head over to adventureathletes.co.uk and you can sign up to all of our events. You can sign up for coaching both in person and online. You can sign up for sports massage. You can sign up for outdoor activity days like the National Three Peaks and get guided by one of our expert guides. So just head over to adventureathletes.co.uk and don't forget to help us spread the word of the podcast. Give it a like, give us a follow, give it a share it with your friends, your family, your mum, your dad, your cat, your nan, everyone you can imagine, because the more views and the further we spread this podcast, the more I can keep this going. There's been a few times in the past 3 years where I've been so close to giving up, and it's all been made possible by you guys and your guest recommendations and giving us listens, giving us support so we can keep going. The more we can spread this, the bigger and better the podcast can get. Until next time, guys.